Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the best teams for Acheron in Honkai Star Rail. Now, you know we don't waste any time on this channel, so let's go ahead and jump right in. If you guys have no idea what she does, I'll make it super easy and simple for you to know. You just need to know 3 things. She doesn't use energy, she likes being with Nihility teammates because she gets a buff from being with them. It's up to 2, so generally at E0 you want to play with at least 2 other Nihility characters to get the max buff possible. And last but not least, of course, she's a very strong DPS character that has a potential to ignore enemy weaknesses, which means it doesn't matter if you have lightning weakness, fire weakness, ice weakness, she does damage to all of them as well. So with that very quick introduction aside, let's talk about her best teams, and you will see this everywhere on the internet. Her best teams will likely be Nihility characters, but I also want to explore other options. As we always do on this channel, I want to give you many ways to play the game and not just the standard meta builds to go for. So standard meta, let's talk about it. I think the best teammate for her, not only for efficiency because she's a 4-star, Pella is very strong. She offers AoE ice damage, but also AoE weakness damage breaking. She counts as Nihility, has a lot of debuff, and can be skill point positive, especially if you don't use her E too much to remove enemy buffs. You don't need the ice rest threat here from her, so actually a very strong combo together with a character like Acheron. So I think she's probably my top pick for both for efficiency and usability sake. Imagine if one day that we have a 5-star Pella. How OP would that be? Very strong for Acheron, definitely. But anyways, other than that, let's say your Pella is like super in use because she's on Jing Liu's team, for example. The other option you can go for, not as good, but similar AoE defense shredding. Not as good as Pella because Pella is like double that of Black Swan. But what Black Swan offers that Pella doesn't is she offers a little bit more damage on the side. If maybe you're looking for a bit more DPS in your roster, perhaps you don't have Acheron and high Eidolons, perhaps you don't have her super well geared yet, you could consider this team composition too. One way to improve this is if you have Kafka's signature light cone patience is all you need. As we talked about on our channel previously, having that allows you to actually turn Acheron into a DOT character that is able to proc shock. For those of you who don't have it, don't worry, it's a bit whalish, but that's just one idea on the side that I want to share with you guys too. I try to share as much ideas as I can with as many people as I can. So that's for the synergy slot, which we are really looking for a defense shredder, AoE in nature, which is really good for Acheron because she does a lot of AoE damage too, with outbursts, her E, her skills and stuff like that. Next up, of course, is the second Nihility in the slot, in the pivot slot. Why do I call this like a pivot section is because you can really play many different styles, and any future Nihility character that comes in likely will be considered in this pivot slot first, unless they're like a straight up 5-star Pella, then it's like of course they're going in the synergy slot. But the first character that I think is very attractive that I want to talk about is Huynh. Why? Is because she's a relatively affordable 4-star. Although it's a limited one, she does damage increase. So for the reasons why Pella is good for the defense shredding, Huynh does like the kind of like the opposite, where she increases the damage that your team members do. So you have like defense shredding here from Pella, you have like damage buffing from Huynh. You have a bit of DOT coming from Huynh also if you do choose to run Black Swan as well. So it gives you a little bit of like flexibility in the pivot slot. Other than that, if you maybe have a bit more resources, you are slightly luckier, one other option is actually going for the Silver Wolf route. Some people are thinking of running like a double defense shredder, for example, Pella, Silver Wolf, so you can have massive amounts of damage on your Acheron, and Black Swan here, maybe you can even like put here if you really wanted to play and you don't want to play like Black Swan as a pure DOT character, you want to play her as like a support-ish kind of character for Acheron. I do see that it's possible given that the pivot slot here, we don't really have too many super OP Nihility characters right now. This is of course at E0 Acheron, and you want to like play 2 Nihility with him. Other than that, before we go into our third mysterious person, what I want to say is that Silver Wolf might not be super valuable here. Firstly is if you are playing in a team like this, you notice you have like lightning here, you have ice here, and Silver Wolf is quantum. Her weakness breaking will be super random and super all over the place, which makes it not as useful as say playing her in like a mono quantum team or a duo element team, which is much more predictable. Other than that, she's also single target. A lot of debuffs though, must give her that until we have like AoE Silver Wolf. I think she will still fit here, but not the best pick in my opinion, and probably could easily be swapped out. The last slot here is any of you who like got lucky or unlucky, haven't used Welt in a really long time, might be a good time to actually consider building him. He does AoE speed down, crowd controlling the enemy. You give him Resolution Shines as Pearls of Sweat, which is Nihility Light Cone, allows him to defense Shred as well, pretty much allowing you to control your enemies so that your team takes less damage just because the enemies don't move as often. This allows you to actually run into a more offensive last slot here for utility for Sustain, which is the new character that's coming out exactly on Acheron's banner as well, which is Gallagher. Now I'm going to just I already kind of teased it a little bit with that fading, but anyways, Gallagher I think is super strong because his out also inflicts a debuff, which is exactly what Acheron wants. You already have 2 Nihility here, so you get the maximum amount of damage. Having a little bit of additional break damage from a character like Gallagher, and if you're some form of like slow, means that you don't mind his much more offensive kit that he provides. No other character in the game, maybe Taunt, other than like Taunt, no other healing character here has the same debuff that he can do that combos well together with Acheron for now. Maybe I might forget a bit. Leave a comment below especially, because sometimes it's hard to remember all characters at the back of my hands, right? But there is one alternative, and some of you are quick to think about it, maybe you're about to type it down, is Trend of Universal Market. If you use Trend of Universal Market, what it does is any preservation character you slap this on, if enemy hits them, they will actually apply a burn on the enemy. And yes, DOT counts as a debuff, which counts to Acheron's stacks as well. So that's why this is one avenue where you can actually use your healer slot to do a lot of debuffs on an enemy, especially if they like keep attacking your preservation unit who's like taunting the enemy. Very, very strong. So you have characters like Japat, Aventurine, and of course you have Fucc, who can really like, all 3 of them can solo sustain your team. You slap on one of Trend of Universal Market, all of them can become like a debuffer all of a sudden. Out of the 3 of them, I think the least nice one to fit with this light cone is Fucc. Doesn't mean Fucc is not good, I still think she's good, just because this Trend of Universal Market skills off with defense. The burn DOT also skills with defense. Fucc generally wants to build a bit more into like HP. Out of the 2 of them, I think Aventurine and Japat are like quite strong as well, but out of all of them, the cheapest option in my opinion is like Gallagher. I think Gallagher will be a very, very strong pick. He's also on the banner, and you can also pick him up, I think, from the 4-star selector. So consider getting him after you've seen some reviews that we will do on day 1. I think you'll be very, very impressed. At least I think his kit is very, very unique for a 4-star. Very strong. And that brings me to the second part, which is a multi-DPS approach. Now, many places online will actually tell you that running a double DPS Acheron may not be meta, which I agree to a large extent. Acheron can be played as a hypercarry, but multiple DPS is important because if we transition over to a many DPS kind of layout and eventually you want to go to an E2, these concepts here will actually feed in very nicely to our thought process of what if you go for E2 and you don't want to play 2 Nihilities anymore. So first things first, the best synergy, as we mentioned a little bit previously, would probably be with a DPS like Black Swan currently. If you have Kafka's Light Cone, great. Acheron can become a DOT character as well. Otherwise, if not, you can easily slap in another character, for example, like Kafka, or you can put in character, for example, like Gui Naifen, stretching her out a little bit for some exercise. But yeah, this is also very strong where you have a double DPS comp or even a triple DPS comp. With the max amount of Nihility damage that you can do, you have multiple element coverage to tackle a lot of content, and all of them look great at the same time, so it's like kind of like our team waifu already. But the reason why I think this is very strong is especially if you're trying to transition into an Acheron, maybe you don't have her super well geared, you don't have very, very good gear, or in future maybe there's another DPS that works very well with Acheron. These kind of like forms a thought process of how you want to build your characters. So very similarly, I won't touch too much on this aspect because the logic is pretty similar. It's just switching in some Nihility characters for more DPS. It's the same thing for the utility section. But what's more exciting and I want to talk about is 2 Nihility characters really a must without Acheron's E2? Some of people on the community will say, yes, it's so important because that 2 Nihility gives you that 60%, 70% where whatever the multipliers are. Now, right now, it's pre-official release. That multiplier is definitely very massive, but I do not think that is a must. In fact, for any of you who have E2, you want to get E2, you can continue watching. And those of you who do not want to get E2, it's even more important that you understand that this unit is actually a very useful utility unit. Remember when we opened and we talked about the 3 things that she does? Other than, for example, needing Nihility characters, she also has a colorless break. And in this team composition, I want to double down on that. We sacrifice that 60% or 15% damage increase, whatever it may be, for a huge amount of utility and resource saving for your overall count. She hits colorless element, which means that any weakness the enemy has, she breaks them. That means that you don't even need a character like Silverwolf in your roster. You don't even need like maybe Ice DPS, Wind DPS, Imaginary DPS. You can kind of do with a character that can hit everything, which means that you require very little resources. If you are a free-to-play player, this might be an example of a way that you can start your account with, so you can hit any content regardless of all of them. And that's really like my value add I want to add to you guys that not many people will probably be expanding upon, because people will harp on the 2 Nihility factor. So the character that has the most synergy with this kind of concept will be another colorless breaker, which is Xue. Xue is a bit single target in nature, which complements, I would say, like Acheron's mixed hybrid AoE and single target DPS. Xue is also very, very how I say, like colorless focus also. She's able to break a lot of enemy weaknesses. And to double on this like double colorless DPS team that we have, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to run and emphasize on a character that breaks enemy weaknesses. Notice here that this is a very aggressive comp because we are not playing into the Nihility aspect at all, sacrificing that 60% damage buff that Acheron could get with 2 Nihility characters. In exchange, we get Runmei's damage buff, which is more than the equivalent amount if you have her at 180% break effect. Not to worry, for those of you who don't have Runmei, I'll give you options as well. But why Runmei here is very good, not only does she give you the damage that is lost from her Nihility passive that is going away, but at the same time, Runmei increases weakness break efficiency, which doubles down on these two being a colorless breaker by nature and doing a lot on damage on the side for weakness breaking and also rest shredding of colorless element, blah blah blah. Runmei is very, very solid. A lot of options that you can play with this particular unit as well. So another option, some of you might not have Runmei, maybe you play her everywhere, she's such a good character. The other 2 options that I can propose will be 1, Esther. Esther has burn in her basic attacks. She has a bit of burn which allows you to actually proc a bit of passive from a character like Acheron so that you can get more charges on her. She has a team-wide push, which is very beneficial for a double DPS that both of them like to scale with attack. Is also very, very strong. Silverwolf is another option as well, which emphasizes on the whole idea of trying to break all sorts of enemies. So if you have a double quantum here, you could go for a utility lightning healer in the last slot if you wanted to, or some sort to match to have a double element. But otherwise, you already have like a good chance of landing quantum if you wanted to play like maybe links in the last slot. So you have like triple quantum and, for example, 1 lightning character here as well. So Silverwolf, very strong, a lot of debuffs, single target, helps you reinforce into this break team too that people might want to play into. The last slot here, I put in Gallagher, who is very good in terms of break effect. He does a lot of break damage. He sets a debuff on the enemy, which helps you build the stacks for Acheron. He can also equip himself with supportive gear and stuff like that for the rest of your team. Abundance character for that sustain. Other than that, you can go with a quantum character, quantum healer, for example, like Lynx, who can pair with a triple quantum, or maybe a double lightning kind of character together with Bailu, or any preservation character with the trend of universal market. I think this is probably one of the most underrated teams that capitalizes on the colorless break strengths. If you are a player who's just new into the game, you don't have many DPSs, and you are going for 1 DPS and you want to like build her out, you want to try to see whether you can go for her S1 as well, consider this. You can tackle a lot more content than otherwise spreading your resources out to many DPSs. But definitely it won't be the highest DPS screenshot for Acheron. But in terms of team-wide, account-wide efficiency, I would recommend this team quite highly. Next up, another team that doesn't go with the Nihility format, the 2 Nihility format, and is really playing on the speed modifier. The fact that she doesn't have any energy at all means you don't have to care about energy restoration rate. And a large part of energy restoration rate comes from the enemies hitting you. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to cheese a build of trying to move as much as we can. This team will likely be better in the pure fiction event mode, where you have a lot of AoE enemies. You don't really need too much sustain as well, because you can just like speed running. So a character like Esther, or eventually, if you guys know what I mean, a 5-star Esther comes out, will be very, very strong here with a light cone like dance. You push up your whole entire team, a lot of speed buffing to your entire team as well, some burn in her basic attacks, and comboing that together with a character that speeds down the enemy, for example like Welt, AoE speed down, AoE speed up. These two have always been a combo since 1.0, but speed has never mattered too much because slowing the enemy usually is detrimental for most cases, especially if you're playing that characters like counter like Blade, characters that counter like Clara, and every time the enemy attacks you, you get energy restoration. For Acheron, she doesn't care whether the enemy moves or not because other than the fact if they can debuff themselves. So this team works pretty synergetic with Acheron. And last but not least, of course, you have a utility character, Ranmei. If you want that extra break on them when they are broken, they take longer to act, so a bit more control. But of course, some of you might not have her in all team compositions. In that case, you can run with a safer bet like Gallagher. I think this is an interesting team if you're planning to run the enemy and try to remove as much turns as the enemy can have. And if you're finding value in this video so far, we still have a couple to go, but like and subscribe for more of such future content as well. Really will help the channel, and we are going to do one for Gallagher. If you're wondering why I keep talking about Gallagher, I really like him as a character for a 4-star, other than of course he's like super cool, right? But we will be doing a video on him shortly too as well. Next up, just a fan service kind of thing, waifu teams. We already talked about some like characters, for example like Black Swan, characters like Kafka, which is a team waifu team. I think that if you have a 5-star character, like 5-star Asta in future, who knows, if Robin is one of them, you might be able to play her in this slot here with that speed team that we were talking about. Otherwise, probably a single target kind of unit will work very well for a character like Acheron, a character that doesn't care too much about like you're getting hyper carried and stuff like that. I personally like Sherry, but I think you can fit in most other non-selfish DPSs in the game. You can play, for example, Hanya, you can play like Ranmei. All these characters definitely will be quite beneficial for her as well. Maybe not so much like Tingyun, not so much characters like Huo Huo or these kind of Huo waifu. I think I better be careful there before I get thrown into jail by FBI. So probably the only one I can put in this slot right now is like Natasha. I don't even know whether Fu Shen can count as a team waifu. Again, turn-based manipulators probably you could also work, but I don't know how that will work with an auto battle Acheron, but that's my thought process. Look for characters that are more independent, don't need to be hyper carried in a sense, because you still want to give like some skill points to Acheron to allow her to act, and anyone that can debuff likely will be shifted up in the priority as well. A quick one for, of course, any waifu enjoyers out there. Now, last but not least, I want to talk about a new player team. Some of you watching this video will be like, there's so many 5 stars EOD. Give me something that I don't need 5 stars for. I'm a new player or I'm trying to go for an account challenge. So this section is dedicated for you guys as well. We try to have something for everyone in this video. In terms of synergy, I think that probably your best pick will be going for free characters like Danheng, Win Danheng, the base Danheng, or Serval. Both of them apply debuffs. Serval applies shock and Danheng applies speed down. They are somewhat of a DPS as well to help you out in the early game, so you have more bursts when you don't have the resources to like min-max one character. Danheng offers single target, Serval offers a bit of AoE damage depending on what you want. The only downside of Serval right now is that she is playing the lightning, Acheron is playing the lightning. In the early game, like if you're a new player, you likely want to run with a character that is maybe doing a bit more other element damage. So I would say that Danheng is like slightly propped up. Other free options that you can go, totally free ones, I think Esther is a very solid pick. You don't really need anything much other than the fact that once you unlock her trace, she has the ability to burn, which helps you proc some of the passive of Acheron, speed up the whole team, and she's free. Very, very good character as well. And eventually, if you want to like move into DOT teams, you want to get Kafka, Black Swan, their rerun and stuff like that, she's also pretty strong as well. So I'll recommend the pivot being Esther without a doubt. Last but not least, of course, utility characters will be the free ones that you get. The one that you start off with is Natasha. You take a while to get links, but these two work very well as well. You probably will be using each of them in either side. If you can wait, you could try to sustain yourself with Fire MC. It's not going to be easy, but you can go for example, links later on, which it will scale better into the slightly end game or middle late game in terms of resource account efficiency, and that's like some thought process. But of course, Fire MC doesn't solo sustain very well, so you will be faced with a bit of challenge. But that is if you are super gung-ho about it and you want like sustain as much resources as you can. So you notice two blue boxes here. I'm not done. I guess for the sake of this video, you are in an event mode where you can possibly get Pella in the banner. Of course, it might not be relevant in the next banner cycle when she has a rerun, Acheron has a rerun. But for now, Pella is a very, very great choice. If you wanted to play a synergy character, Pella is probably the best pick. You could play her here if you didn't want to build these 2 DPSs, and you're left with like a super versatile Pella, Esther, and a sustain character. Carries your account very nicely into late game. Otherwise, if you are lucky and you get a Gallagher from the banner, please play Gallagher. He's very, very strong. He does debuffing and he has a pretty good amount of break damage on the side if you want to build him for that. The gear that they use is relatively different as well. Not all of them uses the same attack crit damage gear, so that's really nice to know. And if you're using your 4-star selector and you don't get lucky pulling Gallagher, you can pick him up. But that's why I put him at like these 2 at like the bottom, because it really depends on when you're watching this video. If it's a rerun in future, might not be very good. And if you found this video helpful, I just want to give a quick shout out that if you guys don't know, Zenless Zone 0 is actually coming out real soon, and the CBT 3 is also coming out, which we will be actually showcasing on our second channel, EODGZZ. You can just search it on YouTube, you'll find it as well. We only at 806 subs. Please help us and support us as well. We will be giving the same quality content you can find here there for Zenless Zone 0 if you're interested. Anyways guys, it's me, EODGamer here. Check out our other Honkai style videos too, and see you in the next video.